Why? The most dangerous question you can ask. Not because it's complicated, because it's inconvenient. We live in a world that loves answers neat, packaged, delivered with confidence. What the world doesn't love: questions, especially from people who won't stop asking them. If you're the person who asks, but why, when everyone else has already moved on, you've probably been called annoying, difficult, exhausting. You question too much, think too much, analyze too much. Here's the truth they won't tell you. Your curiosity isn't the problem. Their discomfort with being questioned is. This is Overthinking Department, where asking why isn't annoying. It's intelligent. And we're about to explore why people who stopped thinking find that so bloody threatening society operates on scripts, unspoken rules, accepted norms, things we do because that's how it's done. Get a degree, get a job, get married, get a mortgage, get promoted, get older, get obedient. The script is clear. What's not encouraged? Asking why any of it matters. The moment you question the script, you're not enlightened, you're disruptive. Why do I need to work 40 hours a week? Why is career progression the measure of success? Why do I need to own property to be considered an adult? Why is being alone treated like failure? These aren't rhetorical questions, they're genuine curiosity, but they're met with irritation, dismissal. The verbal equivalent of a pat on the head and a "you'll understand when you're older." Except you are older, and you still don't understand, because the logic doesn't exist. Most societal norms aren't based on reason. They're based on repetition. This is how we've always done it, isn't a justification. It's an admission that nobody's actually thought about it in decades. And when you ask why, you're not just questioning the rule. You're questioning everyone who followed it without asking. That's uncomfortable. Because if your question is valid, it means their compliance might not have been. Your curiosity holds up a mirror, and most people don't like what they see. One wise bloke, annoying enough to be executed for it, spent his life asking questions he didn't lecture. He inquired, what is justice? What is virtue? Why do we believe what we believe? He questioned everything. Athens wasn't thrilled. They killed him for it. Thought, because questions are dangerous, not to truth, to comfort. When you ask why, you force people to examine their assumptions. Most people don't want to examine their assumptions. They want to live them, quietly, comfortably, without interference from someone who won't stop poking holes in the logic. But here's the reframe. Curiosity isn't disruption, it's evolution. Every major shift in human understanding started with someone asking, but why? Why does the sun move across the sky? It doesn't. We do. Why do we get sick? Germ theory, eventually. Why do we accept this system? Q, every revolution ever. Progress requires questioning. Stagnation requires compliance. And yet we're taught, from childhood, that questions are annoying. Because I said so is the shutdown. That's just how it is the deflection. Stop overthinking it is the accusation. But overthinking isn't the problem. Underthinking is. We've created a culture where thinking critically is labelled as difficult, where asking for clarity is treated as combative, where why is seen as an attack, not an inquiry. And people who question too much, they're not celebrated as curious, they're managed as problems. Right, here's the bit that stings. Most people don't want you to stop asking questions because your questions are invalid. They want you to stop because your questions are uncomfortable. When you ask why, you're not just seeking information. You're revealing gaps, inconsistencies, contradictions, the places where the logic collapses. And people who've built their lives on that logic, they're not interested in examining the foundation. Because if it's shaky, they might have to rebuild. And rebuilding is exhausting. It's easier to call you difficult. Label you a cynic, a pessimist, someone who can't just accept things. But you're not cynical. You're honest. You're not pessimistic. You're analytical. And the people calling you annoying, they're not protecting truth. They're protecting their comfort. Here's the uncomfortable reality. Intelligence often isolates, not because intelligent people are superior, but because they see patterns others don't. They notice contradictions others ignore. They ask questions others won't. And that creates distance, because most conversations operate on surface level agreement, nodding along, accepting, moving on. But you can't move on when the foundation doesn't make sense. So you stay behind, still asking why, whilst everyone else has already left the room. And they call you the problem. So what now? Do you stop asking, dull yourself down, accept things at face value to fit in? Absolutely not. Here's the reframe. Your curiosity isn't annoying. It's filtering. The people who are irritated by your questions are showing you who they are. They're surface level thinkers, comfortable with scripts, allergic to depth, and that's fine, for them. But you're not looking for people who tolerate your curiosity. You're looking for people who match it. Because here's the secret. There are others like you. People who ask why and aren't satisfied with because. People who think deeply, question constantly, and refuse to accept things just because everyone else does. Those are your people. Your curiosity isn't a flaw. It's a filter. It separates the thinkers from the nodders, the curious from the compliant. And yes, that means you'll have fewer people in your life. But the ones who stay, they'll be worth it. Intelligence without curiosity is just memorization. Curiosity without judgment is just exploration. You're not annoying, you're just awake. And unfortunately, that's uncomfortable for people who are still asleep. So, keep asking why, not to be difficult, not to be contrary, but because thinking is not optional. Not for you anyway. Lots of fighters die. You're not going to fit in everywhere. You're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. Some people will find you exhausting. Let them. Because the alternative, dulling yourself, stopping your questions, pretending to be satisfied with the shallow answers, isn't growth, it's surrender. Your curiosity is intelligence trying to make sense of a world that often doesn't. That's not annoying, that's necessary. So keep questioning, keep thinking, keep being inconvenient for people who stopped evolving. You're not the problem. You're just thinking in a world that forgot how. And now, a question for you. When was the last time someone made you feel stupid for asking why? And did you stop asking? Or did you just stop asking them? Drop your answer in the comments. Subscribe if you've ever been called too much for thinking. Overthinking Department. Where questions are welcome, and because I said so, isn't an answer. Open 24/7.